Don't be
Oh,
square.
that's right. Well, everyone who's joining this on YouTube is like, don't be square. Like, what are you guys talking
Right?
about? We're just having fun, man. It's
I
what
know.
we
You
do.
guys,
We have fun.
if you only knew the conversations we have before we get on here.
Oh man, it's
Yeah.
good times.
Yeah. You would, I don't know. You probably wouldn't care. That's the truth.
Probably wouldn't. Feel like these people are boring. Good grief.
Yeah.
That's your life.
For
What are y'all
real.
doing over there?
For real.
Yeah.
Exactly. So hey, Shane, we made it through Snowmageddon in the
We
Carolinas.
We did. So we got
We
8
made it
inches,
through.
8 inches here, which was kind of crazy. That's normally for
Yeah,
us. We don't get that much.
And you know, it's so weird, you guys. I don't know if it's a hair, but something is tickling my face. So I'm not like, but something is like, tickling my face. What's so crazy is we got the same amount of inches you did. I've never known that to happen.
It's crazy. I mean,
You know what I
we
mean? Like,
we don't live in the mountains. We're kind of like in the foothills, I guess.
Right.
But not like
Yeah.
super close. I mean, we're like an hour away. Both of us coming at different angles, but man,
yeah,
it was a good one. It was a good one. I love
it was good. We
one good
still
snow a
have
year.
snow.
Yep.
Yeah,
Same.
we still have snow
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
So we could have still built a snowman yesterday. So that's fun.
That's
Presley
fun.
got to sled down the driveway, which was awesome. And full disclosure, I did get on a boogie board meant for the ocean.
Did you?
And went down.
Did you?
Oh, yes, I did. Thank God I did not die or hurt
I was going to say,
myself.
because your driveway is pretty aggressive when we talk about the slope of that thing. Like it's
yes, guys,
that's getting
for real.
That's getting aggressive on a boogie board.
It's pretty serious. And so then I put my 4-year-old who lives with Down syndrome, who's very cautious. She is not the one that's going to be like jumping on and going. She's very cautious. She's aware of her environment, but she watched my neighbor's daughter, who's 3, go down it several times, and she would applaud. And I said, "Okay, Abigail, you're going to go down." She goes, "Down." And then we got on, she goes, So I'm holding her, and you guys, like, I've never been tubing. I'm a skier, but I've never been tubing. So I'm not just tubing. I'm on a boogie board meant for the ocean.
I'm telling
going down a concrete driveway with snow, primarily ice, into the road, across the road, into another field that's also like this. And if you hit that slope, you're going to end up in the lake. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very rapid descent.
Yes, it is. So I put Abigail on there, Shane, and full disclosure, and we will get on to the business at hand. So you can just fast forward past this if you want. But I get on that thing. I got Abigail. She's sitting in my lap, and the board starts to spin.
Oh no.
So we ended up going down backwards.
Oh no.
And lo and behold, when we got done, Abigail goes, "Yay!" So success.
Wow.
Success.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very
amazing.
It was very awesome.
Good for Abigail.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Good time.
Okay, we're gonna dive in fast today.
All right.
Because last week we left off at using nursery toys to show you what a system is as opposed to a tool, right? And helping you differentiate between the two. Now, I talked a lot, which I don't like to do. That's why Shane's here. Because I like Shane to do more talking than me. But on that side of the world, that is my expertise. But I want to, step 3, you guys, is where we begin the first early steps of automating the process. Okay. However, I say this, I'm going to continue to say this. Shane says it, we believe it, that systems run your business, but you, the person, runs the system. And it is a night and day difference in how we have ever worked in the 100 years prior. So from 1911 to 2011, we worked, our culture over generation after generation worked in what we call the scientific management method, basically the conveyor belt method. Okay, so what that looks like practically is only one person can do the job. And if that person is sick, dies, or leaves, everything below them stops. Okay, so that's how we have been used to working. And so because we already work that way, we're approaching systems of technology in the same way, and they're not a conveyor belt system. And they're not a conveyor belt process. They are an agile, fluid, living organism that is always learning and testing and relearning and testing and relearning and getting better and better and better and constantly changing. Mm-hmm. And so if we, as the person controlling the system, do not understand the way the system works, and we're trying to run a conveyor belt while using a slinky, okay, we're trying to run a slinky the way we run a conveyor belt, we're going to be very frustrated. We're going to give up very fast, and we're going to believe that this just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we live in an era of technology, and we are going to have to reevaluate who we are as people and how we are approaching this process of work. So this is Shane's wheelhouse. I'm not a coach. Let me just clarify right now. I am not a coach. I am a consultant. I'm someone that has just spent enough time failing at something long enough to know what not to do. And I'm kind of the do it this way person. Shane is the why are you doing it that way person. Yep. So he helps us really understand why we're working the way we are, and helping us see with our own awareness where these opportunities are to change. Because as we know, unless we feel it, we're not really motivated to do much about it.
Yeah.
So true. Unless we feel the consequences of our decisions, we're not really motivated to do much about it. So Shane, I'm curious, as we come off of last week talking about testing and what that takes and what the system looks like, and moving into this era of automation and exactly what that takes in the context of the people run the system, what do the people have to possess so the system delivers what they want it to?
Good question. I think there are three things, and if it's okay with you, I'd like for us to talk about each one together. So I'll introduce one. We'll have a conversation around it, and then we'll move to the next one. I think number one is having an awareness. Just so overarching statement. If you want to be someone who can empower people to run the system, then you have to have an awareness that things are always changing, right? You mentioned that, a healthy living organism is what we're talking about here. Your business is a healthy living organism because it is made up of people. So people are constantly changing. You are constantly changing as an owner. Your business, as it continues to grow with the systems, is going to demand a new and better version of you and everyone around you in order to maintain that level of scale that you achieve next. How do you do that? How do you manage that change? Because we love the status quo. If we're honest, we just want things to stay the same. Can I just keep it just like it is right now forever? The answer is no, you can't. You can't. The minute that we get there, we start to experience decline. So what's required for us to leverage the system? Who do we have to become in order for the system to give us what we want in return, what it's designed to do? Number one thing that I believe we have to do is we have to develop courage. So odds are that if you are a business owner, you have an area of strength. It might be sales, it might be development. But in that area of strength, you've maybe in the past put yourself in a box and said, you know what, this is all I do. I have to get someone else to do this other thing. So when you have to step in and manage the system, naturally, you're going to say, I got to have somebody else to do that part. I can't do it. You have to be courageous enough to face that reality and say, you know what, I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to step into what's uncomfortable, get outside of my comfort zone, and be challenged a bit in order to manage the system so I can deploy the people correctly. The other thing I think is true about courage, and I'm curious about your thoughts here, Amy, is you're going to have to go against the grain. You're going to have to swim upstream. Your friends who are not growing their business to the degree that they are pushing out on social media are going to say, what are you doing when you slow down and focus and put your intentions on really growing in a way that is sustainable and can be repeatable and is consistent? Your friends are going to say, well, what about this thing? Haven't you tried this yet? You're going to be tempted to go in that direction. And it's going to take courage for you to say, nope, I'm not going to go that way. So I'm curious, Amy, as you hear me talk about this characteristic of courage, how does it land on you from a systems perspective? What do we courageously need to be considering as we're building out the system?
Well, that virtue or that attribute of courage is practically demonstrated within an agile system, and an agile system also operates from this idea of courage whenever we are willing to not make decisions on external feedback that is not a part of the process, right? So like you said, not listening to the friends or the business members of your mastermind, or an article that you read, or a YouTube video you watched, or a book that you're reading, right? Those are considered external advisors. What we're in this, and practically for the courageous leader, what they're going to say is, it might not work like it. It might not look like it's working because I'm not getting money all day, every day. But what I know is that the feedback loop I've built in an agile system of technology, the feedback loop includes two things: the end user. So that would be either the prospect or the current customer. What are they saying? When we ask very specific questions repeatedly, we don't ask new questions to new people all the time. We ask the same question to the same makeup of human. We listen to that. We collect the data. We organize it into patterns. That's one lane of a feedback loop. The second feedback loop that we're courageously listening to is a number. So we assign a key performance indicator to this particular action. So within that action, the courageous leader will say, okay, you know what? I appreciate this input, but my feedback loop is telling me they're all getting what they want and the numbers are right. And I just have to keep doing this thing until conversion happens because it's coming.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so let's talk about the second attribute or virtue characteristic, however you want to say it, of an agile owner, someone who can be the kind of person that manages the systems. Have you ever had the moment in your business, Amy, where you're like, you know what? I just don't feel like it today. Like, you ever been there? You're like, I really don't feel like it. Yeah.
Today
I've had that day before too.
One of those days.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you know what?
Yes.
I just don't feel like it.
Today is one of those days.
Yeah. I think we all have those days.
Yes.
What's different about the owner who is demonstrating this agility to lead the people who run the systems is they don't let that voice sabotage their success. And here's what I mean. If I hear that voice one time, I hear it 100 times during the week. I really don't feel like it today. Like, it's just, I really don't feel like it today because I love comfort, but comfort doesn't produce the impact that I'm looking for or the income that I'm after either. So the more that I train myself to keep going, even when that voice is there, the more I'm preparing myself for greater and greater impact. It doesn't get easier as you go along as a business owner. It gets harder. You get better at the hard though, right? You get better at the hard. Somebody told me one time that the definition of maturity is the ability to give yourself a command and follow through. So what I want to do is be tenacious. And that's that second character trait. I want to have tenacity, so much so that when that voice comes at me, it's a challenge. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't feel like it, but I'm a mature adult. I'm a mature business owner, and I'm going to give myself a command to do the thing that I know needs to be done so that I can get what I say I want. But that takes tenacity, because we don't just wake up every single day saying, happy day, I'm ready to jump into the business. No, there are a lot of days where we just don't feel like it. So if that tenacity isn't there to do it, even when you don't feel like it, you won't be able to get to the outcome that you're after. So your thoughts, Amy?
Yeah. Well, within a system of technology, tenacity shows up as observational skills, right? Like, okay, I'm going to do the work of observing exactly what is coming from the feedback I'm getting, right? From either the prospective group that I want to acquire more of, or the people that are currently going through my model, whether they're buying cookies or they are buying coaching.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that their voices are very important, and observing and really learning the art of listening will help. I mean, I look behind me, and this is all feedback that I'm always observing. And although you and I sat down and did this together a year ago in January, as I look at it and I've observed it throughout the year, right now, only 2 or 3 words have shifted. The rest of all of this feedback loop remains the same. So the tenacity of me is, I'm not changing this.
Right. Yes.
They are more important than my opinion. The people wanting what I do and the people doing what I do are more important to me than what I want today.
That's good.
So I'm going to tenaciously hang on to this and not change it until they tell me to.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's kind of a fierce rebellion against the tide of adding offers and adding messaging and adding new, I had a woman tell me yesterday, adding new avatars and testing these things and having 5 or 6 lanes of digital marketing. Like, I'm kind of like fiercely rebelling against that bit of advice just by tenaciously saying they haven't changed, so I don't move.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
That's so interesting, because I'm thinking, tenacity is the antidote to the shiny object syndrome, right? I mean, we're all familiar.
Yes.
We're all familiar with shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, I'm going to shift over here. And it's because we get bored, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm bored doing the same thing over and over again. So okay, well, that takes you strung out. It decreases your profitability because it increases your expenses, whether it's time or money. And those are 2 things that I know, and you value these as well, that are like, I'm tenacious about protecting those 2 things. And that requires me saying yes to very little, but yes to the very right things. Well, that leads us to the third character trait, third virtue. And this is one that's interesting to me, because you ever think about how when you start something new, you have this vision of what success looks like in your life. And when you start, it's like 100% opposite. Like, when you first started to ride a bike, you probably were like, man, when I take those training wheels off and I get my big girl bike, I am going to be flying high. It's going to be, and you got on that thing and you're like, whoa. So we start out, we're high up here, it's like, whoa, it's going to be great. And we just go down into this, like, oh no, cannot do this. Am I going to be able to survive? Am I going to be living in a box under Interstate 85? Oh, I might make it. Like, there's this dip that we experience before we ever get success. And if we don't have perseverance, we won't make it through to the other side of that dip, to where we have learned enough, built enough new habits, and gained enough confidence to get to the results that are possible by changing our behavior. So perseverance, to me, is so key, because without it, we can't keep climbing to new heights. I talk to people who continuously say, this is where they want to be, right? Like, so they're right here today. They're like, this is where I want to be. But when it comes down to it, they may be courageous, they may have tenacity, but if they don't have perseverance, they put a lid on their potential to get here without even knowing it sometimes, right? So they have this expectation, ought to just miraculously, poof, be able to go up there. I'm like, no. You got to go through the dark hallway before you get to the open door where the light is. You got to be willing to walk, and that takes perseverance. What about technology? How does technology mirror the perseverance that the owner's got to have in order to achieve these outcomes they want?
Well, in a system of technology, how we achieve perseverance is we take the pressure off of the outcome. So we agree that fear is diplomatic. So we use
say that again. Come on, man. That's good.
Fear is diplomatic. So how that shows up is, look, we are not trying to get something done. We are trying to get a test accomplished. What the test produces is going to help us get closer to what we want, instead of, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose everything. And if you don't get me those leads, you said you were going to get me those leads, and you said that I was going to get X amount of people in my inbox in X amount of days, or, I spent X amount of money, all the money I had left, and it's 30 days later and no one has said yes. Right. So fear needs to be set in its place of, okay, it's okay to have a healthy concern about a return on investment. But we have to also understand that experimenting and testing is a part of getting the return on investment. So we can both say, hey, neither one of us want to lose it all. So let's continue with the test. Right. Yep. And are you measuring the test in your world like I am as your service provider measuring the test? What are you seeing from the testing that I might not be seeing? Right. Yeah. And understanding that it is about experimentation. Everything has to be started there before conclusions can be made, and conclusions come after we are seeing a healthy return on investment. So we take fear and we make it diplomatic for each other, so that we're not each other's enemies. We are each other's allies. We're in this together.
Yeah. And what
it's not just you, you know, something just came to my mind. It's not just your responsibility. It's our responsibility.
Really that's really good.
And that's a big difference from that scientific management method that says, oh, well, that's your thing. And you didn't do that thing. So now the conveyor belt is stuck. I didn't have anything to do with that because that's not my thing. I'm over here doing my thing really well.
Yep. It's easy to point that finger over at somebody else and go, oh, yeah, if they had done their part. Yeah. I get it. You know, that's what I love about
that camaraderie. When you have that camaraderie, I'm sorry, Shane. When you have that camaraderie, you can keep going. Right. There isn't this start, stop like a conveyor belt. So,
and when you clarified when you've clarified the system and who is owning each part of the system, now you can build unity, collaboration, increase. Yeah, but far too often, you know, there are these silos, right? So no one sees the interconnectivity of this system. They just see their individual part. So it's natural that they, you know, start getting protective and blame and all these other things. But your system streamlines it in a way that, I mean, we're not talking about having to overhaul an entire organization. We're just talking about some subtle tweaks that bring great clarity on what matters most, and putting the right people in the right place and giving them some direction that we can measure so that they can own it. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Good stuff.
Well, and the great thing is that by becoming aware and moving into some courageous activity, and then being really tenacious about staying in that activity until either the market demands we change or the prospect demands we change, not the checking account.
Right.
Because when you focus on those two things, your checking account will never be a problem. Money is an indirect result of what Shane just talked about. So we're not chasing the money. We're chasing our own transformation and learning, and we're chasing the ability to get better at what we do so we can help more people. And technology is, you know, if there is any magic pill, it's technology. And when we understand how to use it, it changes everything. And so as we move, as kind of that transformation of ownership and who the owner is in the process of running the business begins to take place in step 2, man, we see massive transformation, or we see mass exodus. Like people either lean in and change, or we never hear from them again. And that is because they're faced not with, oh, this isn't working. They're faced with their own deficiencies.
That's right.
And when faced with our own deficiencies, we have to start making decisions.
That's right.
And so we become paralyzed. And so we just go back to what felt good. We go back to the land of before, and we never actually make it to the land of after. We get stuck in the desert. And so that bridge between phase 2 and 3, step 2 and 3 of what we're talking about is the human's transformation. So when they get to the system of technology, their head is on straight. And when they go to automate, things make more sense. So in our world of automation, we do not automate the first step, which is the content. We don't automate that first connection with the people we want to serve, and we don't automate the model first. So like I meet people all the time that have never coached anyone personally, but have a slew of courses and wonder why they aren't selling.
Yeah.
Well, it is because you put the automation link in the chain before the testing link.
Yes. Now,
without the testing link, you don't know what to automate for the client. Remember, we don't move until the client says to move. So once we have enough data from clients, we can now say, I see where you want me to be one-to-one or be available to you human to human, and where you want to do your own thing when you want to do your thing.
I hope this
is what automation
is.
is.
And I hope people are waking up to this idea that, you know, what people are pushing your way is not necessarily rooted in fact. I have people, and I know you do, Amy. I have people I had somebody this week who messaged me on a social media platform. They don't know me from anybody. And their first contact with me was, hey, I see that you're a coach. Have you ever considered automating your course to give it to the world? I'm like, you are foolish. Like, number one, you don't know how to sell. Number one. Number two, you are trying to do something that is not feasible. Yeah. Like, you don't know where I am in my process. You don't know what my ideal client is. You don't know how they behave around my model. You don't know any of that. So for you to promise that you can take my course to the world, don't be fooled, my friends. Do not be fooled.
Well, and I think here's the deal is I'm going to put a caveat here. Shane is not saying this person does not know how to sell because they DM'd him. It's because of the language,
that's correct,
the vocabulary, and even the structure of that content within the DM. Because DMs are just the modern day networking event.
Yep.
Accept it.
I network
it is what it is.
Direct messages all the time, but not with that type of a content approach. Not at all. And that's why you were saying earlier, Amy, you don't delegate the content piece. Like that's front end connection to your ideal client. And that's something that's that's mine. I'm not delegating that. Neither should you.
That's right. Yeah. Not yet. And not until you're all mine and you're not a contractor. Like there's big things here. So the reality is that the first thing that we automate is not the first step. See, that's what the archaic scientific method of management says we should do. Well, it's the next thing on the conveyor belt. Why wouldn't we do that? Because the system of technology demands that first step needs to remain human to human for a period of time. We've got to get really good data, because without that converting in automation down in step 4, which we're going to talk about, without that first step of content being automated and converting at a number of 15%, then we are losing money and opportunities like a sinking ship, like the Titanic, you guys. The unsinkable ship suddenly sinks. Digital marketing is known as the unsinkable ship, but it sinks all day, every day for people because they approach it from this archaic method of automation. So we actually, when we get to step 3, the very first thing that we automate, and we enter into automation here, is we automate the second step, which is actually a demonstration of our value. Think cooking show, right? So we put onto video exactly how we help people that behave like the person watching it. And it gives them an immediate ability to lean in and trust us, or say, oh, that's not me, and go.
That's right.
And those are the two things we want to happen. We want the people that this is for to come in, and we want the people that we are not created to serve to move out to those that are created to serve them.
That's right.
Yep. And so that's the first step of automation. So again, if you're being told, start by automating step 1, whether that's, hey, you're a coach, build a course, but you haven't actually worked with enough people one-to-one to know what to automate, then I would run from that advice. Or if you're being told, hey, we'll take it from here and we're going to write the content and we're going to do the thing, but you don't have a conversion organically of 15% to the next step on the chain, which is a phone call, then you're going to be losing money, my friend, when it comes to technology. So I hope that today you've gotten a clearer picture that systems really do run your business. I mean, that's really how we get the people, but the people, you, the owner, the brand owner, the leader, the leadership are running the systems. And what that's going to require from you is awareness, courage, tenacity. Stay there, my friend, because it will take you much further than changing your priorities 700 times a day, AKA shiny object syndrome. So we hope you guys have a powerful week, and we will talk to you next week